for the Japanese management philosophy and the Western management philosophy. And it was kind of interesting because whereas we spend generally, and this includes the private sector, we spend 20% in planning, and we generally spend 80% on implementation. If you were to go back, now this is an older book, so I don't know if it's changed, but in those days, in the 70s and 80s, the Japanese spent about 80% on planning and 20% on implementation. People say, well, who cares? Well, it's interesting. Their whole line is shorter. From beginning to end is shorter because they don't get wrapped up in having to go back and do the planning again because they haven't done it well enough, and then they come back and then they get beat up and they go back and do the planning. So it's all about going slow to go fast and beware of deadlines that are not necessary. Is it more expensive? It is. You're going to go through a very large civic engagement process around the general plan. They're going to have to hire some consultants to come in and help them with that process. Some from the technical standpoint, maybe once and twice, just for someone to help them design a civic engagement process. So, well, you shouldn't be spending money on that. We spend it on this. Let me tell you, if you don't spend your money on that, and the general plan blows up, you're going to get a lawsuit, and you're going to spend a lot of money. Or they're going to take some piece of the general plan and put it on the referendum. And citizens do that. They're so mad because it was done so poorly, they want to referendum this issue. And that takes a lot of money. So it's in the short run, it may be, quote, faster, and in the short run, cheaper. But if you want to look a year out, I guarantee you that's probably not true. It's very important that both council and staff understand civic engagement and support it. One of the things that's very dangerous is for a city manager or a city council as a whole to say, go engage the public around X, the design of a new downtown or something. But the council and or the city manager already knows what they want that thing to look like. You'll get about a third of the way in, and you'll begin to get angry meetings. And oftentimes that's because you're trying to push people in a certain direction, and we may not know it consciously, but we know it subconsciously, and we start to resist that. Well, wait a minute, I'm being led somewhere. I don't want to be led somewhere. If you want my input, ask for my input, I'll give it to you. And then let's move forward. It's new to staff, and it's new to residents. There's probably not a lot of really good civic engagement that you've experienced. I'm going to do an exercise, and you can share those with us. So that's that's some of the things we have to worry about. So here's what civic engagement is. Remember I said there's a third way. And this is very, very important because it's a lot of different things. It could be just that. It is reasonable and fair and legitimate for the council to make a decision about something, a new ordinance, and tell the staff, please go out and educate the public about this. That is civic engagement. It's education. It's one way, but it is engagement. You start to move up here. Anytime you go from here, if you're going to consult, you will have informed them and then go to consult. If you're going to incorporate, you're going to... So all of these take these. And as you move this way, you increase the level of influence and engagement of the public. So some of the things that kill us, though, is maybe the city manager or something believes that they were told by council to engage, and they're going to get input. But maybe the public comes to a meeting thinking that they're going to make some hard decisions, which would be up here, or even they will even sort of develop the options that are going to be discussed in public. So what happens is, if someone is at this end, comes to a meeting, and someone's up here that comes to a meeting, and you cross, everybody gets angry. They don't understand why you're not listening to them, but they haven't told you that that's what they wanted you to do, and there was no decision making. And you don't understand why they keep talking at you endlessly for an hour, because you really want to talk and make some decisions. So the biggest problem we have in civic engagement is being upfront and saying, this is what we're using. So if you get anything, get that. And it's fair for the public to say, excuse me, what are we being asked to do at this meeting, if the staff forgets? And it's imperative on the staff to say, we're consulting. we're bringing in 3 options that we worked with the council on, and we want your input on those 3 options. But we're not looking for options 7, 8, and 9. We're just looking at you rank ordering these 3 options. So we really get in trouble by just not being clear about what we're doing and why we're doing it on both parties. So let's take a look at what these, sort of the definition of these stages are. So inform is pretty obvious. It's just to pass on information. We've got a brand new ordinance around modifying garages for granny units or something like that. It's pretty complex, and it probably is helpful to do some education around it. I'm not sure I would do it in meetings, but it's okay to do them in meetings, and so you could do that. So it's providing information. Consulting is asking the public for input. The public's not defining the issue or framing it. The public's not coming up with the options, but the public is weighing in on which of these options work best. When we first did this in Redwood City around the budget, it was new to us. And when I tell people, be honest, I came up to, we had a series of meetings around the budget. This was probably 5 years ago. And I said, this is new to us. We don't quite know what we're doing. So we're going to take baby steps here. I understand you would probably like to be down here, but we're not trained up to do that. The public, you guys are very forgiving when we're honest with you. When we're not honest with you, we all feel it because we get hoisted on our own petard, so to speak. So I think it's incumbent upon staff to say, we don't know how to go here yet, but we're trying. So the first time I did a budget exercise, the council had to make some really drastic cuts. We just did this, but we told them that's what we were doing. And we're saying, if this goes well, hopefully next year we'll get there. What is this? It's the staff comes up with 3 options around the budget. Here's budget option package 1. It has some revenue increases, has some cuts, it has some whatever. Here's option 2, no revenue increases, more cuts. Here's option 3, it does something else. And we want you to rank them. And so what I actually ask people to do, and so you can get a sense of it, and I'll go through these steps, but first of all, you don't jump into this, but once we got there, I asked them to I asked the public, I want you guys to write the pros and cons of each of these. We have some in our own head, but I don't want to give them to you, I want to write them. We had each table do that, and they shared them out, because you guys had a better pro they hadn't thought about, and they had a better con, so you learn from each other. Then you go back into tables, and I said, okay, now that you've done that, rank order them. And tell us, if you were the council, would you take package A, B, or C as the way to balance the budget? And they did, and they really worked hard at it. When the staff gets more sophisticated, you can start doing this, and that's where it's this plus this. But what we're really saying is, and generally, and I'll get into a little bit, I want the public to help me set those budget options that the public will discuss. Now, oftentimes that happens by, I will work with a group of people, maybe 10 to 12 people, that are not the, quote, same old people, but I'll get a group that's sort of a good cross-section, and I'll work with them on what the options should be that we will take to your own residents, because they're all residents, for this discussion. So in each phase, you're getting the public more involved. In this, you're actually having them frame the issue. Is the issue cutting the budget? Is the issue more revenue? What is the issue? I want you to help us frame it, because framing the issue is a tremendous amount of power. You can frame an issue inappropriately, and the discussion goes in one way. So again, this is just, you ask. Here is real empowerment. You're asking the public to make a decision, but pay attention always with that. No council should or would ever say whatever you want. They're elected, and they have certain legal responsibilities, certainly fiduciary responsibilities. They can set boundaries, and the boundaries should be this big. They shouldn't be little boundaries, but you got to do this, you can't do this, you should do this. Don't give the public little tiny boundaries that give them the answer you want. But so each of these is a different process. Each builds on the one previously. but it's very important that we understand how this thing works. The other thing about how do you decide, so often the question is, how do you decide which one of these to use? If I was to go back here, I've got an issue that I want to talk about. Well, where should I be? How should I approach the city? How should I approach residents? How do I know where I want to be on this thing? We have a series of questions that we think are important to look at, and it's called purpose. The purpose will define the process. If you know what your purpose is, then the process will pretty much be laid out up here for you. And let me give you an example. If my purpose is merely to inform, then yes, that's exactly what, If my purpose is merely to inform, then I'm going to be way down here. Okay? Maybe